Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth in understanding female psychopath thrill-seeking behavior. When we're talking about a female psychopath, we are talking about someone who has a much different composite and inner workings than really the rest of society. And when I say different inner workings, meaning there's something different about their way that their brain and their heart, or the absence thereof of a connection, is interfacing with others, particularly those who they seek to be in close relationships with, or sort of suss out, target, and get into their scope for very deliberate and purposeful, intentional impact, specifically negative, destructive, damaging. And a psychopath, we're not going to go too much into the brain and its different thereof. It's to understand that these individuals have a high propensity for boredom. And to offset this, they engage in high-risk, thrill-seeking behavior, particularly that of violating norms, violating boundaries, going beyond with which would be expected. Now, just to get a quick, just sort of a little bit of an understanding or taste of the neurochemical, or really the passivity or inactivity in the brain, or the hypersensitivity, it's to understand that these individuals have a hypersensitivity to dopamine, which is the reward neurochemical. So when they want something, they are very rewarded internally for going after it. So more so, 5 times greater than really what the rest of society experiences. So, for example, if you are rewarded by eating a chocolate ice cream sundae with hot fudge and whipped cream, it's a dopamine response. It's when you're rewarded from something that you do, or that you purchase, or etc. It's a dopamine response. Oh, I'm so glad I got that. You're getting a reward. So you're feeling a reward, from that stimulus. So the female psychopath has this going on. So when they want something, they're really kind of all in. It's very straightforward. And people oftentimes, when they are on the receiving end of this behavior, they feel like, wow, this person really likes me. How awesome. So that's how they're interpreting this experience or this aspect of a female psychopath. But it's also important to understand that the amygdala, however you want to pronounce it, we're talking about, that aspect of the brain which triggers, that fight or flight, and is, triggering a fear-based reaction or stress. It's very inactive and a shrunk or smaller size to be found in the brain studies and scans of psychopathic individuals, meaning that the amygdala is not producing as much, and so they're not experiencing emotions, particularly fear. Most things that people would be fearful of, they wouldn't do. It's a natural, you might consider it common sense, or people just wouldn't do that. That it would be too fearful. It would, be wrong. It would be immoral. I can't physically do that. They don't have any brakes on the car. They don't have any barricade. To them it's just easy enough to blow through because they don't feel that experience or sensation. However, they see and observe the fact that no one else will transcend or go beyond. They see that nobody else will really sort of go through, not to transcend, because that would give a positive spin on things, but no one would exceed or do that. They stop themselves, or they've had conversations that would be wrong, and they overhear this, that's improper, that's immoral. I don't think we should do that. That's too risky. And so they observe the fact that others don't do this, and they go, okay, I see, I've got something different about me that I feel no problem. I have no hesitation. I have no inhibition for doing that. But I see others do, and then that makes me, with a superpower, is how they interpret it. In that, then they interpret others to be dumb, normal, inferior, because they're inhibited by these societal norms, propriety, morality. And so they feel that they're able to do things that others can't, and that this sets them apart, but they interpret it for themselves in the positive. In other words, how can I use this to get what I want and to get power and control over others? These individuals, these females, have an insatiable need for power and control over others. This is what they are all about. This is what makes their clock tick. This is what gives them their drive. They have this need to control and sort of dupe and deceive others, and are rewarded by it. It's often felt also that the high-risk behavior that we see is, which oftentimes they implicate others in, is because of a high testosterone, a heightened level of testosterone. So that being like the aggressive hormone. A lot of people equate this with masculinity or being aggressive. A lot of people then see this and then interpret it as, what an assertive female. Wow, what a go-getter. What a doer. She is so bold. The fearless female. It has all these sort of glowing, radiant terms, of being fearless, of being bold, of having courage, and so they'll oftentimes try to interpret it as such. Yet when you observe, you'll say, no one else would really do that. Isn't that odd? This is unique to this person. Maybe they're a unicorn. Maybe they're a princess. Maybe they're a queen. Maybe they're perfectly my soulmate, because look, they're responsive to me, and here they possess all these qualities that quote unquote no one else has. Oh, aren't I so lucky? So when we look at this sort of combination, the amygdala, the testosterone, also the activity, and I said we weren't going to go into the science of it yet, but I want you to understand that there is a literal physical basis that cannot be changed. Okay, so if you're hoping and wishing, maybe you can tone them down, or they'll change with getting older, or if they have kids, or if they get married, they don't change. Their status of Miss to Mrs., from this to that title, it does not change. We'll get into that later. But also the activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is resulting to judgment and future planning, also shows slowed activity, which means that judgment centers, as well as that to plan, are impaired. And so with all this together, this is just a little bit of the differentials. It results in a female who is wanting to offset a lot of boredom. So if they're just doing the regular old, same old, these individuals feel very bored, very unstimulated, and they can't really help themselves, and so then they get it going, and they get into full lizard mode, basically, when they are targeting other people. And that oftentimes means, lizard meaning like a cold-blooded creature. We talk about women, humans are warm-blooded, and we talk about lizards and snakes, fish, I think, are cold-blooded. These individuals, very much internally, that's really what it is. It's kind of an aesthetic term, but it's in all senses of the word devoid of emotion, connection, bonding, trust. All these sort of experiences are not in their repertoire or their spectrum. but they observe and study. So they've got this sort of on the periphery, on the sidelines, sort of, seeing of people. They can see things in others that they can't, that others cannot see. There was a song probably about 10 years ago, I can see you, but you can't see me, or something like that was in the words. And it just sort of, that's kind of what it is. They, it's kind of like they're watching the dance floor from a balcony, and they're watching others, and others who are dancing can't see them. So it's kind of like that, but even though they're right there with you, they can see things, they see other people and what's going on, and they see, the nonverbals, they see the micro expressions, they see how people will get closer, they'll see when people back away, they observe how people keep personal space, how people keep, certain protocols, unspoken, I wouldn't drive there, I wouldn't do this there, I wouldn't go into that office, I wouldn't send that email, I wouldn't send this picture. These are things that most people would naturally not even question, or it wouldn't even enter their mind. Yet a female psychopath, because of this change and, this change of their wiring, which cannot be changed, but I'm saying what makes them different or distinct, and dare I say, don't view it as interesting, fascinating, let me get closer. Be very careful if you think that you're going to outwit them. Do not try to match them on this. Or think that you're going to tell them off because now you know who they are. No. So because of these components or aspects of the female psychopath, they have a very strong drive for high risk or thrill-seeking behavior. And particularly not that they're so interested in having a good time or to get closer to somebody or to accomplish something for the sake of contribution, whether they want to rise up in a company, whether they want to move forward and get more exclusive, quote unquote, in a relationship, or, have a family. That is just to really offset the boredom. And it's just because they do not like to sit still. They have, their clock is ticking, so to speak. They need to offset it. And so a lot of people think, wow, look at all that they're doing for me. A lot of men think, wow, I'm so flattered that they would text me now. They'd email me this picture. They would do this at the workplace. They'd, take on this responsibility. They would assist me with this, and they think that this person's going above and beyond. It's this person. And so it makes, for very quote unquote attractive qualities. And I keep using quotes because it's oftentimes what people see in the beginning. But when they go into full lizard mode, they're just going, they're on that dopamine, they're on the whatever, they're into that high risk thrill-seeking behavior, which usually is very high risk, can be illegal, certainly to get one in trouble, and not just in the law. In the law, yes, these people will try to evade the law all the time, but they'll do things, going behind people's back, going to places and aspects of places where you should not be. You're at a nightclub and this person departs from you. Next thing you know, they're, with somebody else in the same room, and, and they've got 2 dates going on at the same nightclub. They've got, 2 dates going on at the same restaurant. They've got 2 companies that they're working for, moonlighting, and they have conflict of interest. Yet, and most people wouldn't do this because it's written in their contract or something like that. Yet here they go, and just with no regret, no remorse, not feeling a tinge of guilt, not feeling a tinge of wrong. It doesn't, they know, they read it, but within, they don't have any reason to uphold it because they don't feel any moral obligation or moral wrong. They are in, full lizard mode. all the time. And once again, they set decoys. Decoys meaning it appears as if they are one way. I mean, they can have an office with all sorts of pictures of their kids and seem like great family people. And, and then they'll, look at this, look at this, look at this. And then meanwhile, they're just sort of grooming their target to create, this motherly figure, this nurturing figure. And then yet behind the scenes, their behavior is completely to the contrary. And they love to have control and power in this way. It gives them the thrill. It gives them the dopamine hit. It's like practicing their art, the art of deception. I could tell by her bloodstained hand, Mick Jagger. They are very practiced at the art of deception, and not just as a part-time thing, but as a all-the-time thing. It's not just, let me just do this on the weekends. It's all the time in all settings. It is not let's do this, for fun. It's with anything. You can be at a restaurant and, where did you go? Oh, she was in the powder room powdering her nose. Next thing you know, you find out on the way out that the cook is waving at her coming out of the back, and she didn't tell you this, but she went behind the scenes to compliment the chef and gave him her phone number. Oh, wouldn't you like to cook to me on the side, or whatever. Your food is intoxicating. Your food is mesmerizing. Or, going back into the back office of the restaurant and just picking up a pen that was sitting on a desk, and she comes back waving it around. I mean, just weird, odd stuff. Why would you take that? What good is it going to do for you? It's just because they can. Very strange things go missing like this. The high thrill-seeking behavior. When a door bounces back and you've got that rubber piece so that it doesn't make a noise. You've got this in your office. All of a sudden one day you find out that that's missing. You don't really think twice about it, but then the maintenance guy comes around and is like, where's the door jamb? And you're like, I have no idea. You find out that the female psychopathic just took it because she could. It's just as simple as that. It's a thrill, that they get uniquely. Strange, odd things that wouldn't you think would even get them anywhere. They just do it because. And the other aspect of the thrill-seeking behavior can also be, quote unquote, in the bedroom or, just in business. So bringing you close to, I don't want to say close to passing, but doing things like asphyxiation, and you're like, would a woman ever really do that? And then their hands get too tight. Strange things, where they would have the capacity, and I don't want to say that, but strange high-risk behaviors that really kind of bring you to the brink, and they would have no problem fulfilling that, but they are testing others. Things with business. Oh, I accidentally, left your computer on the train, and, it has all these files. I left your briefcase at the restaurant. I left your phone here. All your contacts, all your banking info is sitting out, at the restaurant. Just all this high-risk behavior that seems like maybe, was that a mistake? Was this intentional? And it is intentional. It is deliberate. This is just high-risk behaviors that a female psychopath will do, oftentimes are perceived as very positive qualities in the beginning, but then it really begins to turn. It begins to turn sour. It begins to go south. It begins to get too close for comfort. It begins to get too erotic. It begins to get too wild. It begins to get too weird, too strange. Things are missing. Where is the toaster? What are you doing with, putting, this knife near this toaster while I'm doing this? Strange things that they will knock it with their elbow, and things will see unintentional, but it's very deliberate. We're talking over the long haul. This is just strange things that they do. And especially be careful if it's involving, things like your kids, that they're in charge, and I didn't mean to leave them at the bus stop for an extra hour, and then the kids are crying, and then they have no remorse, no guilt. They're screaming and crying. They're each calling on their phone, 10 and 20 times every 5 minutes. Where are you? And the mother's just like at the store shopping, picking out socks, and the kids are having a tantrum, and they're just unaffected. It doesn't mean anything for them. All they care, it's rain on the window pane. It's a non-issue. It's just a non-issue. And the reason I think people, they don't think that someone could be capable of cruelty or this thrill behavior, because why would there be a thrill in this? Why would there be a reward? Why would there sort of be this uptick? And it's just because this is how they are. They're not going to change. They are resistive to change. They're not capable of change. They often, and they don't want to change. They feel that they can use this quality or this aspect or this area or this crossroads as a positive. They think that because they are this way, once again, they interpret it as a positive, meaning I can outsmart others. I'm not inhibited the way others are. I'm not held back. I can do more. And oftentimes this accounts for huge advances in career. They can do things, stealing data, stealing contacts, files, messing up files, forgetting things, deleting things. All sorts of info goes missing from their competitor. They can't do their presentation. I mean, it's old school, bad school. I mean, it's bad school, old school. It's, and you can't, oftentimes, once again, their face, their countenance, how they look, belays or betrays what's going on underneath. How could they be capable? How could a female be capable of this? And people oftentimes are just in this shock, and then the shock oftentimes leads to either passivity, meaning they're just like a deer in headlights with their mouth agape, and they just are so stunned, and they're in just the shock and awe that they just can't move. They're like paralyzed. Or they want to figure it out. They want to see if they can discover more. They want to see what else this person is capable of. It's like watching a train wreck. Is one car going to go off the rail? 2, 3, are people going to jump? Is there going to be an explosion? Is there going to be a saving, a saving of the day? Is, a big bird going to come fly and swoop down and get it back on track? I mean, people oftentimes then are trying to figure out and then trying to really get their ticks and then have a big all-out fight. You did this, and they're just waiting for more ammunition. Big mistake. To think that you are going to outsmart this person, evade them with reason, and have this sort of linear discussion. But these people, they love power and control, and they want to mirror back sort of that they're perfect for you. And, if they have a perfect for you, there's a perfect for them and a perfect over here. So they can masquerade and charade on a physical basis in a metamorphosis, almost like a multiple personality aspect, where literally the micro expressions of their face change, their voice changes, how they carry themselves, the tone of their voice. And you're like, is this the same person? And it's very strange to behold. And they can change up everything from their hair to their jewelry, to their outfits, to their voice tone, to the look in their eyes, towards the way they present and speak. I mean, it's just, and it's not even like a, it's kind of, it's even more so than like a ventriloquist or something. In other words, it's a whole personality shift. And it's not like a businesswoman going into a mother. We're talking about a more thorough, more in-depth transmutation or metamorphosizing of individual, and the way that they can talk about things. Their sentence structure can change, their grammar, their vocabulary. They can go from, people, oh, what a great actress. Again, once again, the positive. They can go from being the street girl to the executive to the religious to the baby to the teenager to the old elderly. I mean, they can just go through a gamut. You just don't know what you're going to deal with. So when they are in that sort of full lizard mode, don't second guess yourself. Stop, trying to figure out more and maybe get ammunition. Know what it is, and then realize that you don't have to perceive them as threatening. If you do, then they're winning. Of course, they're all about the win, but they're all about that high-risk behavior. So when you're experiencing this, you kind of have to be able to see through the dark. You have to be able to see beyond their manipulation and their control. You have to be able to realize that they can't get under your skin the way that they have seen themselves get under your skin. So you have to back it up even more and not be controlled by their scenarios. You have to really understand that you are separate and distinct. You have to, it's not like, oh, no one can make me feel this way. They don't have permission. You literally have to physiologically say they don't have control over my heartbeat. Even though they might have, previously, because you didn't know before. But moving forward and healing, you have to realize that all that plague is their plague. It doesn't have to be your plague. You don't have to be frightened, fearful, feeling threatened, gaslighted, brainwashed, psychologically hijacked the way that you have been. That will and can change. It does take a lot of work. It takes study. But mainly, it also is going to take not thinking like the psychopath, and not continuing to consume them. And we did have questions by a viewer who's like, what happens if, they keep coming up in my dreams? They are going to keep coming up in your dreams. Even after you are, to give you an understanding of the degree of potency, is that they will continue to come up in your dreams. Maybe for several months, maybe even several years. They're on that level sort of telepathic communication. And a lot of people might say, well, maybe are they psychic or something? It's because their level of perception is different. And it gives them the ability to position themselves in ways that are very disturbing and threatening to you, that elicit and really hyper arouse your own amygdala, your own fear-based system, that gets you like holding on to that memory for dear life, because your own subconscious knows how important it is for you to grab hold of this. When you turn around and all of a sudden you see them in the corner and you're like, no one would really sit there, and it seems very odd. And so it stands out as a very strange thing. Or the way that they'll position themselves in between desks or within blinders, the things that, it's just odd positioning of themselves. We could do a whole video on that. I mean, it's just so strange. It's part of the manipulation, but the way that they physically position themselves is so that in your mind's eye, you'll only see them if you turn a certain way, and then it'll catch you off guard. So it'll be like this, like micro fear, that you physiologically hold onto, and you perceive it, and you replay it again and again because you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to figure out why you see them like this. Why why is their body positioned like this? Why are their clothing sort of, just doing certain things that make you perceive different things? Once again, we can do a whole video on that, but this is part of the high-risk thrill-seeking behavior, is also this sort of positioning of themselves in odd ways. Once again, you have to realize that you're dealing with someone who doesn't have the same warm, nurturing, circuitry. And once again, for a lot of men, this might provide a relief, and a release of stress, and so they stay with it, but yet they're getting corrupted at the level of their identity, which is very, very painful, difficult, and scary to experience. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. And please donate to help keep the channel alive. And I hope you are able to connect some of the tools here, and then it's beginning to make sense and bring you some clarity.